Welcome to Sociology of Cars podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy XAE. You're listening to the 9th episode brought to you by 0 to 60 Studios in San Dimas, California. My guest today is Kealey, a car journalist who's written for the Kealey Blue Books, MotorTrend, Hooniverse, BMW BLOG, The Drive, and so on. Sean, I am so honored to have you in the studio today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's cool to be here.
So for those who are not familiar with your work, would you mind telling the national audience who you are and what they should know about you?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about my background and a little bit about how I've kind of dived into car journalism a little bit. I have a weird background because usually I feel like most people that get into car journalism, they either have focused on cars as being pretty much what they've done their entire life, or they've been involved with media. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, so just outside Philadelphia. I was a volunteer firefighter for about 3 years in high school. Ended up going to the United States Military Academy graduating in 2015. Spent about 5 years in the Army as a field artillery officer and got out in 2020 as a captain.
Wow.
But that was kind of my time before being a, car journalist. But actually, I started when I was in the military. Getting into car journalism, my first time doing anything, I actually invited a couple people from MotorTrend to come speak at my school. Because there was actually an automotive engineering basically department, but they never really had anyone ever come speak with them as guest speakers. So I was like, well, I know some of these guys over at MotorTrend, maybe they'll want to come and speak. So they came to West Point, which was cool. And they brought with them a Rolls-Royce Wraith and I think it was like a Hellcat 392. But essentially it was cool because they made a whole photo shoot about it and they did like a whole story about it and everything like that. But that was back in 2013.
Wow.
And then from there, because I knew them a little bit while I was actually on active duty, I was actually deployed for 9 months in South Korea. And they had no one to cover the Seoul Motor Show. So while I was there, they were like, hey, can you go cover it? Can you take some photos, write an article about it? And I was like, yeah, sure. So that was my first published article. And then from there, my second published article, which was cool because it kind of blew up. And then it actually had a little bit of like an impact on pricing and it kind of created a little bit of controversy. I covered in really great detail about the Type R markups for the FK8 when they came out. Because I don't think people really understood the full impact and how bad they were. Because I was trying to buy one myself, and I did. I bought one at MSRP. But those were my first two articles from MotorTrend. And then while I was getting out of the military, I was looking to do what they call a corporate fellowship program. So when you're getting out of the military, you have an option to be able to spend the last few months on active duty doing some kind of corporate fellowship program to help you transition out. And I thought I was going to get into it full time. Unfortunately, something with MotorTrend fell through, but I was able to work at Kealey Blue Book for about 3 months as I was getting out. So that was cool. So I got to work directly with, Michael Harley, Carl Brower, Lynn Woodward, Michael Muzio. So I got to work directly with those, all of them. And that was like a super amazing experience getting to do that and dive into it full time. So that was my first time actually living in Southern California full time too. That was back in 2020, right before the pandemic. Pandemic hit, everything kind of fell apart. But I took a job working for Amazon at the time as an operations manager, and I couldn't quite do car journalism full time. But because I had kind of made relationships while I was, working with MotorTrend and Kealey Blue Book, I started writing for The Drive a little bit, and then I also ended up writing for Hooniverse for Jeff Glocker at Auto Trader MotorTrend. Did a couple reviews for him, did a Type R review, TLX Type S review, and actually I need to send it to him. I have the new Civic Hybrid review that I still owe him. But so I've done a couple for Hooniverse. Like I said, I wrote for Drive for a short period of time, but starting about a year and a half ago or so, I started actually writing and doing videos for BMW BLOG. So that's primarily who I write for right now, and that's mainly what I do. But that has been, I guess, kind of the most in depth I've gone. That's the first time I've been on camera making YouTube videos, doing video reviews, really kind of getting into the true car journalism stuff, rather than just kind of behind the scenes or just written stuff. So.
Wow, that's super cool. Thank you so much for your service.
No, thank you.
So it sounds like you've been loving cars ever since you were a child.
Yeah. I've been a car guy.
I saw a post of yours. You were saying that the 13-year-old Sean would be very proud of the 32-year-old Sean today. What was that initial trigger point for you, like, where you say, wow, cars are cool, I might want to get into it?
Yeah. So when I was really little, my uncle and a lot of my family, they were big Mustang people. So my uncle had a couple different Mustangs. He had a 64 white convertible, and then he also had two 68 fastbacks. I grew up with him. Like, we'd go to the Carlisle Car Show, which was like in Pennsylvania, and it's where they would have, all kinds of old classic Mustangs there, newer ones. That was part of it. And then also my dad was always kind of a car guy. So my dad grew up like dirt poor. He was the first American born in his family of his Irish family. And they kind of had to pay his way through college. And it was cool to kind of see him like actually kind of make something for himself. But once he started doing better for himself, he bought his first BMW. So he had an E36 325i Coupe.
Beautiful.
And yeah, it was Boston green. And it was like, he was super excited about it. And it was just those memories of like getting in the car with him, like him enjoying, driving a manual, having fun with the car. And then the big thing for us, I'll never forget, was going to the car dealership when he ordered an E46 generation 330i Coupe. And that was like a big deal because that was his first brand new car that he had ever ordered. And it was, built in Germany and shipped over. So it was cool like to see him take delivery of that and how excited he was. And we did road trips in that. He would take us to hockey practice and that. And then there was actually a short period of time for about a year and a half. He had an E46 M3 convertible. Wow. And that was like probably my favorite car that he ever owned. But that was like, I'll never forget that. So that was my first experience of like a BMW M car and just absolutely loving that driving experience. And it's cool because that's still considered like the best BMW ever made pretty much, as people kind of consider that as like, that's what they think of.
So that sounds like that's where your BMW love started.
Yeah. No, it's definitely those 3 Series coupes that he had in the M3. That was where I was like, okay, I love these cars.
It's funny that you brought up like the whole growing up and the parental impact on your view on cars. So studies from a few years ago have shown that the majority of Gen Zs nowadays, they aspire to be influencers. And of course, the word influencers has just been used so sparingly nowadays. It can mean somebody who is a car journalist, a internet personality, or somebody just has a channel that's consistently making content. Mm-hmm. So in other words, all of this is to say that, Sean, when a young person sees you, they think that they're seeing a god, which makes me wonder, why am I not on my knees right now?
Oh my God, no, I'm not. I'm some random nerd that just likes talking about cars, pretty much.
Yeah, so that kind of gets into the core of the episode. We want to decode what it's like to be a car journalist and what actually goes into it. Spoiler alert, it might not be as sacred as you might expect. So the first question for you is, in general, how does one get into car journalism? Part-time or full-time, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of it comes from networking a little bit, but then also it comes from having, at the base of it, you have to have an incredible depth of knowledge, I feel like, about cars. So you really have to know what you're talking about. It's not something you can kind of fake. You also have to have a good ability to write and usually have some ability to either deal with video production or photography. So like when it comes from my background in college, I did a ton of writing because my major I was an international relations major, but I also had to take environmental engineering classes. So I had this background where I had some engineering experience and know-how, and I could articulate about engineering. But also as someone who had to write as much as I did in college, I got very good at being able to write a lot very quickly. So that's a big part of it because the basis of car journalism, most people that are going to be writing, most people aren't going to be in front of a camera, at least not at first. There's exceptions. There are other people who like started a YouTube channel, but for me, my dad was real big into photography. I learned a lot from him. And while I was in the military, one of my side jobs from being like a field artillery officer was I was a public affairs rep. So we would take photos of all the training that we were doing while we were out in the field. We would help make press releases. Like I said, when the opportunities presented itself for me to be able to, write an article and take photos, like on my first article, I kind of already had that background. Again, being able to articulate the subject matter, have some kind of artistic ability to either present it through social media.
Got it. So step one, be really charming and attractive. Step 2, socializing. Socializing, meeting people who can give you an opportunity. Step 3, having multiple talents like photography, videography, writing, articulation skills. And then when time is right, you kind of put the 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, it's like a mix of putting it all together. And some of it's just luck, and some of it is, like I said, just the ability to meet people and kind of introduce yourself and, who they can trust. I think because of my military background, I had shown, I had at one point a $37 million hand receipt of stuff that and like 32 people whose lives I was in charge of. So like for me, it's like, okay, well, I think if he was entrusted with that, like I think I can give him a Honda Pilot press car and, he won't do anything crazy with it. And then it's slowly over time too. Like I said, again, it was initially like doing a couple articles. And then at Kealey Blue Book, it's like they'll give you 1 or 2 press cars. And then eventually, once you've shown that like you can take care of a press car, you can be responsible with them. That's when you start getting the opportunity for more and more. Right. And then once you've also begun to build those relationships with the OEMs, the PR teams, the automotive, outlets that you're writing for, that's when they can sit there and say like, okay, well, we've trusted him in the past. Okay, we can give him more press cars, or we can give him a story. We know he's gonna, produce the story, and he's not just gonna take a car and then like not do anything with it.
So I know that some young journalists, they're trying to review their friends' cars and their family's cars. Would you say that that's a good entry step?
Yeah, you can totally do that. I mean, I've done even just like on social media for fun. Like I would just do kind of reviews of like random cars that I would drive.
Got it. Let's say this person writes an article, review the car. What do they do to get that article published somewhere or get seen somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Usually, typically, the outlet will like reach out to you, but there are people that I know that are freelance. And what they'll do is sometimes they kind of already know who the outlet's going to be, that they're going to write for. It might be Forbes, it might be Robb Report, it might be New York Times, whoever. And then what they'll do is they'll go out and they'll get the press car. And then as long as you're able to find an outlet to be able to publish it, then they're kind of able to do it reverse of what I do. Whereas typically what I do for my outlets is I talk to my editor. For BMW BLOG, it's Horatio, and I'll talk with him. I'll be like, hey, here's some ideas I have. Or he'll be like, oh, here's some ideas that I have for you. And then once we kind of agree on what we want to do a story on, that's where, we'll go ahead. We'll reach out to the OEM if he hasn't already, and we'll say like, hey, we want to borrow this car for a week or for however long. And from there, we'll go ahead and, they'll give us a press loan. The press fleets themselves are actually like third-party companies. So usually what happens is it's not BMW directly giving the car. It's a third-party company named whoever, and then they basically manage the press fleet and then deliveries to the different journalists, or you go pick them up. And then from there, once you've kind of coordinated that, you get the car for however long, make your content with it, do the review, and then you give it back. Typically, they're about a week. But some are shorter. Some are like 2 or 3 days.
So your experience really underscores the importance of knowing people, socializing, and opening up doors.
Yeah.
For all these opportunities.
Oh, right? Yeah, no, I mean, networking, I think, is a big part of it. I mean, it's not going to carry you, I think, for everything. Like, if you just know someone, but again, if you can be trustworthy and you work hard and you can put out a good product, definitely networking is a big part of it. So,
but Sean, it's easy for you to say because you're charming, but not everybody is as charming as you are.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I'm charming. I'm still single, so I'm not that charming.
Well, that being said, let's write on your charm a little bit. What's the difference between a part-time journalist versus a full-time journalist?
Oh, that's a good one. I do know I have friends that are like full-time journalists and they've been doing it for years. So I have a couple friends I know at MotorTrend who they've been doing it for like 10, 15, 20 years or more. For them, it's kind of a dream job. Not only will they get cars for a review for once a week, they'll usually get invited by the manufacturers for like new car release parties, first drive events, things of those nature. And I've gotten to go to a few of them. So I've gotten to go to, I think, 3 new car releases. A lot of the OEMs will try to kind of schmooze the journalists a little bit. So usually like they'll feed you good food and good drinks and stuff, hoping to keep you kind of happy. You still have to be as objective as you can, but they're trying to leave a good impression for you. I think one of the, downsides for being a full-time car journalist is at the end of the day, as amazing as this job is and as amazing as the opportunities are to get to go to a lot of these different places and fly to some of these events or get to drive some of the coolest cars in the world, usually the pay is not, it's not great.
Even full-time?
even full-time. There are some that do pretty well for themselves. Usually the ones that are independent and they have like a big YouTube channel and a big following, or if they're able to kind of create a side business from it. So again, like, you know, Doug DeMuro, he was able to kind of create like cars and bids out from his YouTube channel. But even his YouTube channel had like 5 or 6 million subscribers.
Wow.
So for some of them, they're able to kind of make a business case out of it. And then again, if you have a big following, that's when you can get sponsorships, and that's when you can turn it into something that you can actually make pretty good money for. But again, I think like your standard car journalist who's just writing for a publication, not there's anything wrong with that. They're definitely doing it because it's a job that they love to do. And it's incredibly rewarding. And if you're a car person, I mean, it really is a dream job. But I don't think it's anything that like you yourself are probably going to be able to afford, like, you know, buying a new 911 Turbo S or, you know, a GT3 from just doing car journalism itself.
Right. I think that from our conversation off air, you mentioned that very few journalists are considered full-time. Most of them that you see on YouTube nowadays, they're independent.
Yeah, a lot of them are either independent or it's they do it part-time or they have something else. So like I know a couple others that they might own their own company and they might be like an entrepreneur. They might do something in tech during the day. Like my full-time job, I'm an engineer. So like I'm an account manager at an engineering company and I basically help deal with like more, I guess you would say like water treatment related stuff for like a lot of big companies. But that's my like 9 to 5. That's what pays my bills. You know, that's what keeps my cats fed and everything. But yeah, a lot of them, there's usually something else going on behind the scenes. And then the car journalism thing is something they do because they love it. Like I really don't make any money off of this. As a matter of fact, a lot of times for some reviews, it costs me money.
Wow.
Usually, because what I want to do is I want to put out a good product. So when it comes to either buying new equipment, keeping the cars detailed and fueled, you know, sometimes like right now my camera is kind of on the fritz. So like sometimes a lot of times I'll be helping pay photographers and friends to help come make content or rollers or help with video. So sometimes like at the end of the day, kind of costs me a little bit of money. Yeah, I help get some of my expenses paid. I'm not saying like BMW BLOG, they help, you know, they're great. But yeah, this is not something that like I'm becoming rich off of by any means.
Right. Which is really mind-blowing because I remember a friend of mine actually works for a well-known magazine and he was telling me like, Jimmy, the majority of the car journalists that you see out there, not only are they independent, you know, like the influencers, right? They actually don't make a lot of money or sometimes not at all.
Yeah.
It was just like an attention kind of thing. Yeah. They feel good doing it because they love doing it.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't make money, which is mind-blowing. And he said to me, Jimmy, if you want to become a car journalist and actually make a full-time living out of it, you've got to find creative ways to make money. Can you talk more about what the creative ways might be?
Yeah, and I think some of the creative ways that I've seen, like I said, it's usually either through advertising. So if they have some kind of sponsorship, again, I know like some of the ones that have a little bit of a larger following on YouTube, YouTube itself will pay for your views, but they don't, I think they've kind of dialed back on how much they used to pay. So usually it's getting some kind of independent sponsorship. So a lot of them, that's when you see, you know, they'll say like, oh, sponsored by Tux Mats or, you know, Bridgestone Tires or, you know,
off the record.
Yeah. Off the record. Yeah, exactly. Which I've had to use a couple times. They're great. But, or like I said, they have to have some other means of income.
Oh no. Cause you know, Gen Z is wanting to become influencers. So they see journalists, and then they just assume that you're as rich as the Kardashians. They think that you're so glamorous, reviewing all these Lambos.
I wish.
Yeah, but little did they know that a lot of these people don't even make that much money. Mind-blowing.
A lot of them don't, but again, they love what they do. And this actually leads into kind of a funny car journalist story. One of my really good buddies, his name's Peter Nelson, super intelligent, like probably one of the best car journalists I know. He's independent. I actually ended up dating this girl for about 8 months who was his neighbor. And it was kind of a funny story how we found out it was his neighbor. But when we first met, we matched on Hinge and we started talking a little bit. And I had an M340i press car that I was getting like the next week. So when we were like scheduling our first date, I was sitting there and I was like, you know, oh yeah, you know, I'm going to have this press car because I'm kind of a car journalist. And I was like, yeah, I get to like drive you around. She's like, oh, my neighbor does that. And again, there's not many people who do this. So I was really kind of confused. I was like, there's no way. Like, I don't know what she must be confused. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, oh, my neighbor, he gets all these cars all the time. And yeah, he's like, he writes all these like reviews and stuff. And I'm like, what's his name? And then she said the name, and I was like, I was with him last week. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I was driving an M2 up in the mountains with him. Like, yeah, he's one of my good friends. I know him. And it turned out that like the M340 press car that I thought might like woo her a little bit was in her driveway because he had it the week before me. So like that completely killed like any riz whatsoever that I had. I was like, damn, okay, that's not working out. I was like, what are the odds?
Right. And you know, this is amazing story. When you think about people in other professions, right? If you ask them, hey, what would you do if you have unlimited amount of money? What would you do if you win the lottery? The majority of them just say, I'm so tired after work, I just want to watch Netflix and eat popcorn, right? But car people are built differently. This is what I always say to people. Car people are built differently. We brought this to ourselves. We have full-time jobs, yet because of our passion, we wanted to invest into making a car review, even if it means that we got to put money into the job. But we still love doing it. I mean, who would do something like that? It sounds pretty irrational. And you know why, Sean? Because I think that car people are romantics.
Oh, yeah.
We're always searching for something. And for searching that feeling, that certain purpose, we're willing to put up with it.
Yeah, I also think we're just like stupid and we like abuse because like cars always are just like money pits, but we keep putting money into it because we're just like, oh, okay, fine.
Would you say that people treat you differently when you pull up in a press car maybe every week or a fancy press car?
Sometimes, because sometimes I think my neighbors are like, what is this guy doing? Because one of my neighbors the one time was like, what do you, like, I always see you have like a different car. Like you've had like 4 different cars in the last like 2 months. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do car reviews.
Nice. Well, I think that's a little segue to a little break. When we come back, cops show up at journalists' doorsteps. We further decode Sean Kealey's secrets and auto journalism.
Oh, gosh.
You're listening to Sociology of Cars podcast. This is Jimmy XIE. So Sean, let me tell you more about our sponsor 0 to 60 Studios in San Dimas, California. So the studio that we're in right now is actually for rent. Right next door, we have the printing shop. Downstairs, we have the 1,000 square foot state-of-the-art sim racing studio with a lounge full of leather sofas. Everything leather is always better. Right next door, we have a auto lab where Joe and Chris do their PPF, vinyl wrap, tinting, and nowadays they also do auto works. You can host your birthday party, car meets, private events at the facility. Outside, we have large, wide parkings for auto enthusiasts. So the question that people ought to be asking is, what do they not offer to car enthusiasts? Everything is like a one-stop shop. When you first walk in, what did you think of the place?
I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, one, it was cool to see a couple of the cars that they had just kind of laying in here. But also like the sim rigs were really cool. Because that's something I always feel like I wish I had my own sim rig. I wish I could like get there and practice more. And then to kind of see the facilities here, it's kind of nice. Like, oh, if you and your friends want to come out and just either practice or have kind of a party or whatever, or just hang out, like that's pretty nice. Right. Where I know like sometimes when I'm getting, sitting there while I'm getting PPF or ceramic coatings done, I kind of wish I had something to do. So it's cool. Like if my car's getting worked on next door, I can just chill out and sit on a rig for a couple hours and practice, lapping at Button Willow so I could finally do like a sub 2 there or something.
Right. So playing sim, getting some PPF done, grab food, grab some drinks. I mean, this is just like a man cave. This is like a private club.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So head over to 0 to 60 on Instagram for more details. Just come and then nobody gets hurt. Wow, Sean, that was really fantastic. You're making me want to become a car journalist now. You're impressing the dudes and impressing the girls by having all these nice cars.
I don't think I'm impressing any girls.
All these perks of being a car journalist. So what are some of the downsides or the dark sides of being a car journalist?
Ooh, your first car is not going to be like, oh yeah, here's a new 911 GTS. Like, go ahead, do what you want with it. It's usually like, you get to start reviewing. If you are going to review cars, usually the more normal stuff first. Nothing wrong with that because I love driving anything.
I can imagine it being pretty nerve-wracking because you don't want to wreck the car while, doing the POV driving.
Yeah, you definitely don't. And that's the thing is you want to make sure, again, that you're being responsible with the car. So again, you want to make content that's engaging and fun to watch, but you also want to make sure, obviously, that you're not breaking any laws and that you're not doing anything totally irresponsible with it. Because in the past, there have been journalists who have wrecked cars And sometimes like that, or like if you get bad behavior, like that can get you blacklisted from some manufacturers. Like
Blacklisted?
again, because they won't want to give you a car if you wreck it. You know, if they show like, okay, we can't trust you with this. Like you, but again, it's like that with any job. Like, I mean, if you do something incredibly irresponsible, you're probably going to get fired. And it's like, if you're a car journalist and you're being reckless and you're responsible, they're not going to want to work with you. So it's like you do need to make sure that you're being responsible with what you do.
Well, so Sean, let's say if I wreck a car doing a video reviewing a car, what happens? I mean, do I go through my insurance or do they have insurance for me?
I think typically those cars are insured through basically whatever like the third party company is that's in charge of the press fleet. So again, when you sign over and you sign your press agreement, basically you're showing that like, okay, this car is insured. You know, you're usually not paying out of your own insurance. I think is my understanding. I have not wrecked a press car. I'm actually incredibly particular about keeping my press cars cleaned. So like a couple of the press cars I've actually clay barred. It helps with the relationship with these companies because then they see like, oh, okay, I can trust that when I give it to him, he's going to return it with a full tank of gas. It's not going to be damaged, and he's going to make sure that like it's detailed and looks good, and they appreciate that.
Let's say if they wanted to lend you a car, does BMW have to approve that for the fleet to lend you a car?
Yes. So it's kind of both ways. You need to make sure with the press fleet that one, it's available and they'll lend it to you. But then also, yeah, you've got to get approval from like, you know, the PR team from that OEM to say like, oh yeah, you know, usually they're the ones that'll contact the third party company and say like, oh, hey, this person would like this car. Can you work with them? And then you'll, you know, arrange a time or whether you need to go pick it up from them or if they're going to deliver it to your house sometimes.
Got it. So you kind of have to maintain the relationship with both the rental company and the car manufacturer.
Yeah. Right. So you want to make sure again that you kind of keep good relationships and that you're being responsible with the car and then, you know, being professional with them.
Now, can you talk badly about a car?
You can. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, part of being a journalist is you want to be as objective as possible. But there is a certain element where you have to be careful about what you say and how you say it. Because if you're just trashing a car just because you think it would get good views, like that's not really professional. That's not something you want to do. But if you're trashing a car because it's actually like objectively bad and there's actually things wrong with it, it can stain your relationship with that OEM. And again, they might be a little bit more reluctant to invite you to things in the future. So you need to make sure that you're being professional, appropriate. I've definitely said bad things about some of the cars that I've reviewed. Like I'm not always 100% glowing on every car that I've...
But you are also being honest.
Yeah, you're being honest. And sometimes, you know, they'll be a little bit upset if you say anything that's not great about it. I think I went at length about how much I hated Acura's touchpad system for their infotainment. It is truly the worst infotainment system I've ever used in my life, still to this day. And I genuinely think that's one of the reasons that the TLX just didn't sell well, along with a couple other things. But again, Acura will still lend me a press car, but like, yeah, they remember like, oh yeah, that guy said some stuff.
Really? So
but
they hold a grudge.
I don't think a grudge, but they're just like yeah, okay, like yeah, we'll give you a car. But yeah, I mean, I've said there have been some stuff about some of the BMWs I've driven where I'll be honest and I'll say like there are some things that I don't like, right. And you know they'll still work with me. But yeah, you've got to be careful. You don't want to trash a car just to trash it,
right? And you know what's so interesting is always like for some of the smaller independent reviewers, right? You might say, well, if I talk badly about a car, they might not lend me a second car. But if you're super famous, like Throttle House, no matter how much shade that you throw at a company, they're still going to lend you a car because they want your viewers.
Yeah, to a degree. I think sometimes if some of the reviews are a little bit too harsh, I think sometimes they either not blacklisted or they might not get invited to some events, or they might not get the car first, or they might not get premier whatever.
Like shadow banned.
Yeah, shadow banned in a way. Like I think if they said something particular about one car being really, really bad, they might not get... The next time there's like a first drive, they might not get invited to it. They might get the car like a couple weeks later or whatever like that. It kind of shadow banned in a way. So you've just got to toe the line of being careful with what you say, but also still trying to be objective. Because again, a bad review can like have an impact on the car's sales. Like let's say there's a certain German brand that decided to make a 4-cylinder version of a previously 8-cylinder version of their car.
Oh no.
And that's hybrid now. That might not necessarily be a bad thing in of itself, but if a bunch of car journalists drive it and they're like, this is nothing like the previous car, it's nothing the character, it shouldn't have this badge.
Has it impacted the sales?
I think so. And I do know that particular car, at least in December, had like $10,000 discounts on it. Meanwhile, like, let's say hypothetically like a BMW M3, you were still going to pay pretty much MSRP on because there was still so much demand.
So car journalists wield a lot of power.
They can to a degree. Again, like actually when I wrote my Type R article about all the markups, there was basically a lot of scrutiny between Honda and the dealerships. I'm trying to sit there and say like, hey, this is impacting our brand image a little bit. It's impacting sales and it's driving a lot of people who were Honda enthusiasts away because there's a car that they absolutely love and they want to buy. But when you go to the dealership and then you're getting strong-handed for like a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 or more markup to buy a Civic, it leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, including myself. Like I know for myself, I was actually planning on buying an FL5 and the dealership experience turned me off so much. I literally just gave up on buying the car completely. And I had a couple bad Honda dealership experiences here when I owned my Type R. So like when I wrote the FL5 review, part of what I talked about was the markups, because the fact is you're reviewing the car and you're sitting there trying to say, oh, that this is a $46,000 car. But that's not what people are actually paying. So you're reviewing the car saying, hey, I'm actually comparing this as a $60,000 car, $65,000, $70,000, because that's what people were paying for like a year and a half when it came out. They're finally at a point now where they're basically MSRP.
Right. So the dealers saw your note and they were not very happy.
Yeah, I think some of the dealerships weren't too happy. One of the dealerships definitely remembered me.
Do they tackle you to the ground as soon as you walk through the door?
No, but I walked in 2 years after the Type R review when I talked about dealership markups because I was curious. And actually, when I got my new job recently, my new day job, I was looking at getting a daily. And like I said, I obviously didn't buy it, but I was looking at Civic hybrids. And the one salesman looked at me and he's like, I remember you.
Oh my.
And I was like, oh, hi. And then he's like, what are you doing here? I was like, I was looking at the Civic hybrids a little bit. And he's like, are you actually going to buy this time? He's like, you're not going to write anything about this. And I was like, oof. I was like, okay, he remembers me. So I kind of left, but, yeah, actually, it was funny. That dealership actually gave me the best price. I think they wanted to try and like make amends, but yeah, I didn't end up with a Civic hybrid. I ended up with a M340i.
Right. You know, what's so interesting to me is like the relationship that car journalists such as yourself, your relationship with the car manufacturers, right? Because you get all these cars for free to review and feature in your videos or articles. And the manufacturers don't really pay you any money to review that car, but you get the cool factor. It's like, oh, I get to review this M2. So wouldn't that be a little bit peculiar though? It's like they're, benefiting millions of dollars from these sales because of an article or video that you did. However, they're not going to pay you anything and you have to sometimes lose money to make that review. So it's sort of like, are they taking advantage of car journalists?
Yes and no. I mean, like I said, there is that element of OEMs do try to schmooze you a little bit because they're hoping that you're going to say good things about the car, but you have to be objective. And, sometimes there are a lot of these people. I'm friends with a lot of the PR people for a lot of different companies. Some of them we send memes to each other every single day or whatever. But I've also come out and I've like said bad things about their cars before. And they're like, hey, man, like that's not cool. And I'm like, I'm sorry, man, but your car designers kind of messed this one up. I'm on BMW blog. I'm a BMW enthusiast. I've loved BMWs for a very long time. I'm still probably one of the harshest critics of the M3 and M4's current design out there.
So, Sean, could you speak a little bit more about the driving record and its impact on journalists? Are you allowed to have points on your license?
You want to avoid them if you can. So I have no tickets on my record as of right now. And I have had to use off the record before. Again, I've been very responsible. Like I said, with my press cars, I haven't done anything that reckless. There was one that I may have gotten a speeding ticket. However, I will say that the speeding ticket that I got, the cop did not use radar. And in the state of California, I found out they can just give you a speeding ticket if they think you were doing a certain speed. So he's just like, yeah, you were doing 25 over. And I know I was doing like maybe 7 over.
Because nowadays they target people in the canyons. They
Yes.
want to deter you from coming.
Yeah. And the car that I had was like a very bright green, like obnoxious, like it was a car that like they just looked at me and they're like, we know you're going to be speeding up there. So I think they just gave me a ticket. But also there were 2 officers there, which usually means I think they had a field training officer and I think they had a new guy. And I think they were like, oh, here's how you give out a speeding ticket. They were just doing it for practice. But
Got it. So let's say if
off
you
the
do have
record,
1 point.
totally worth it. Highly recommend it. I think I've used them 3 separate times over the years. I can say it now because it's past the statute of limitations. And there was also a VinWiki episode that I was on where I talked about my 140 mile an hour speeding ticket. Yeah. So off the record.
Oh, wait, that was you?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
my
I mean, there's people I think who've probably gotten faster speeding tickets than that. But yeah, I had my ZL1. It was brand new. I was passing a tractor trailer that was swerving all over the road because it was windy that day. And I was dating a girl at the time. She was in the car with me and I wanted to impress her. So I'm like, hey, watch this. And downshifted into the 3rd, 4th. I'm in 5th gear at this point, and I passed the tractor trailer, but I was having fun. There was no other cars around on the road. It's Arizona, flat, straight, in the middle of the desert.
Wow.
And the one single overpass that I pass, and I had a radar detector, so I thought I was safe. He did instant on, which means he keeps it off, and then he'll turn it on whenever he wants to. So if you didn't pick up anything several miles before then, you would never know. And unfortunately, literally as I'm going through this underpass, he turns it on and I'm like, oh my God, I'm screwed. But he was a car guy because I had bought basically the first 6th gen ZL1 in El Paso when it had come out. And I pulled over right away. Part of me was kind of like, do I run at this point? Like I'm already going so fast. But I was like, no, I'm going to pull over. I'm going to do the right thing. And he pulled up to my window. I was like, officer, I'm so sorry. I thought he was going to come like guns drawn, but he comes out and he's just like, oh, is this the new ZL1? I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm catching a break here.
Right.
It's the only time I've played the veteran card because I was like, I don't want to go to jail today. I was like, officer, I'm so sorry. I just got back from a deployment. I just bought this car. I knew I shouldn't have been going that fast. I was trying to get past that tractor trailer that was swerving all over. And he's like, no, that's okay. I was going to pull him over until I clocked you going 140. But he's like, look, I appreciate you being honest. My cruiser, I probably wouldn't have been able to catch you and you were going so fast. I didn't even see what car you were in. So he's like, look, I appreciate you pulling over. Look, I'm just going to drop it to a 99. So it's not a felony anymore. And that was that.
Wow. So let's say if you do get a point, does that impact your ability to get a press car?
I think as long as you still have a license, you can still get a press car. But I mean, you want to avoid getting, stopped in press cars. But I think a lot of people have. It just happens. Like again, when you're just in a high performance car, like generally there's a chance you get a speeding ticket.
Right. And to be fair, there are journalists who have points and they have also wrecked a press car and they're still getting cars. And
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. No, there's a bunch. I mean, I think like it's not a secret. I think there's a bunch of high profile car journalists that have either wrecked a car on video or something along those lines, or they've gotten pulled over. Like it happens.
Got it. So off air, I think we had a conversation about nowadays the police are scouting Instagram and they're seeing the videos and sometimes they would even show up at journalists' doorsteps.
I have heard of that. Like I said, my understanding is I think, and part of it I think stems from the sideshow culture, which is not, or takeover culture, which is not anything related to car journalists per se.
Right.
But I think what happens is a lot of people are on social media now, and when they see people doing a lot of this like illegal activity where, they're doing takeover stuff and they're putting it out on social media, I think what's happened is cops started cracking down on that so much that anything even related to that, whether it's videos of people speeding, whether it's people, driving fast in the canyons or anything like that, even if, like up in the canyons, there's kind of a code that you follow, respect the crest, as Jay Ryan would say, where maybe you're driving a little bit quickly, but as long as you're doing it in a particular way that's safe, you're staying on your side of the yellow line, you're using the turnouts when, a car wants to pass you and stuff like that. Like, and you're not going 10 tenths. Like, as long as you're going reasonably quick, but safely, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's like a gray zone.
Yeah. In my opinion, that's like, I think out of all car related activities, that's not necessarily that bad. But the point that I'm getting to is I think police started cracking down a lot because people were putting this stuff out on social media. Some people were doing it for clout and some people were being too reckless. But I think what's happening is if you put out content where it is very obvious that you are doing something very illegal and very dangerous, and they have evidence that can point you being in a particular time and place, doing a particular speed, and they know it's you, yeah, I think they can start to kind of come after you. So I have heard they've been trying to make sure that you've got to be particularly careful about like either not showing your speed or making sure you're not speeding, or, you know, you're doing it like on track, or you're just being more responsible in general about the content you put out.
So such as POV videos.
Yeah, POV videos, you got to be careful.
So even if I have a sticker on there, can they say, well, from this corner to that corner, you got there in 1 second and we know how long the corner, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know
they
that.
Can't speculate.
Yeah, maybe they can speculate. I don't know. So I think that's more of a common thing now where they're starting to either like blur it out or blur out the speedometer or put some kind of sticker or something along those lines. I don't know. But I mean, the general rule is don't speed. And I never speed, for the record. I'm a law-abiding citizen.
And just so everybody knows that I am well known in the car industry as the person who drives like a grandma.
Yes.
So wait, so in some instances where cops actually showed up at the doorstep of car journalists?
I've heard of that. I don't know how true it is. I've heard a story before where that.
Is it like
happened.
a ticket or is it like an arrest?
I don't know. I don't know the severity of it or anything like that. But I do know, like, for the cannonball community, because that's one thing I don't know if I've spoken about, is I did a cannonball run back in 2019. Again, that was 6 years ago at this point, so it's past statute of limitations, so I could talk about it. But a lot of people in the cannonball community, they don't release a lot of their footage and a lot of the hard evidence for like several years.
So I have a question. So if that's the case, a lot of the younger folks nowadays love to upload POV videos on their Instagram pages, like a full page full of them driving the canyons.
Yeah.
That's a little dicey.
It is. And some of it I've seen where it's like very clear, like, okay, you shouldn't be doing that.
So at the end of our episode, Sean, what do you think the future of car journalism would look like?
It's going to be interesting, especially as social media, it seems like things are going, a lot more people are going independent. I think a lot of the bigger publications are trying to figure out their role in where they stay, just because, again, they usually have higher budgets. They usually are, the way they get, ad revenue, I think, is a little bit different. But again, they're having to compete against some of these people who are able to come in with a GoPro and, get an audience of several million followers to rival, the audience of, a major outlet that might have a similar following but have a full staff.
Wow, Sean, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all of your insight today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, just at Sean Kealey, just my name, just SeanKealey.
Got it. So can people reach out if they have any questions for you?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm totally fine and open. I answer my DMs all the time.
Perfect. Well, initially I came in here just representing most of the young people out there thinking that car journalists are gods, which made me wonder why I wasn't on my knees. But after an hour of talking to you...
Just a random car nerd.
After an hour of talking to you, I realized that car journalists are people just like you and I. They're extremely passionate about what they do, about cars. They're willing to sacrifice their time and energy to put out good content and to give us the unbiased reviews. Sean, I'm so honored to have you, and I think that our viewers would also benefit from listening to our conversation and maybe even reaching out and having you help out with some of the questions that may have. Sociology of Cars podcast is produced by Sociology of Everything, supported by 0 to 60 Studios in San Dimas, California. This is Jimmy XAE. See you next time.